Hi, I'm John. I'm a parent, and this is my 2-minute tip. Have you heard this from your children at all? Hey, Mom and Dad, are you racist? How do I know if I'm racist? What does racism even mean? When talking to our kids about racism, we must make it clear that racism is a belief that is as opposite of the character of God as good is to evil. There is no place for racism in God's kingdom. Racism is the belief that one group of people is better than another because of the color of their skin, or their language, or some characteristic. If you believe the first verse of the Bible, Genesis 1:1, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth," then you also believe Genesis 1:27, where we read that God created mankind in his image. Think about this. All humans are made in God's image. That means I resemble God, as do you. So does a person born in Argentina or the Philippines or Russia or Korea or Finland or Nigeria or Egypt. Short people resemble God, tall people resemble God. Those who speak French or Japanese or Swahili or Spanish or even English resemble God. If we are made in God's image, is there any reason or any time or any excuse to accept racism? Absolutely not. It is critical that you talk with your children about the Bible's perspective on people. Talk to your children about what Jesus commands us to do in the Great Commandment. Jesus tells us to love God with all of our heart, all of our soul, and all of our mind, and to love our neighbor as ourself. You can't love your neighbor until you love God with all of your heart. And the way we love God with all of our heart is by being obedient to his commands. When we obey and love the way God tells us to love, we can love our neighbor as ourselves. One key story that is critical for you to share with your children and have them own it and have it deep in their heart is the story of the Good Samaritan. It's found in Luke chapter 10, verse 25 through 37. And it's a good story. And somebody asked Jesus, well, what does it mean to love your neighbor as yourself? I mean, that's a very complex question. And Jesus told a story about this Jewish man who's walking on a road and he gets beat up by a bunch of robbers. And he is beat up horribly. And he's left there on the road, in great pain, hurt badly. And a Jewish priest walks by, a Jewish pastor, and he sees the man in the road, and he keeps walking by. A Levite, who was a Jewish religious or political worker, saw the man lying in the road, and he walked by too. Then a Samaritan. The Samaritans were rivals and foes of the Jews. They did not get along at all. This Samaritan saw this Jewish person on the ground hurt badly, and picked him up, took care of him, and brought him to a hotel, and gave the innkeeper money so that the person can get healed. And then the Samaritan said, when I come back next week, if the money I'm giving you now doesn't cover the cost of this, I'll pay you more and make sure that you, the innkeeper, are taken care of. The point is this, my friends. Jesus says, don't look at people as a foe, but as God's creation. Look at all people as people made in the image of God. There is no place for racism or hate as a Christian. Remember, God created humans in his image long before there were national boundaries or the nations of today, long before the languages we speak came into use. If we love God with all of our heart, we love all people, regardless of where they came from, or the language they speak, or how they got to our country, or how they got to our town. Teach your children and remind yourself to love like Jesus. Remind your children that loving like Jesus means there is no place for an act of racism. There are no places for words of racism, and there is no place for thoughts of racism.